Um, I have a couple of questions I'll put before you, and I'll pick on a couple of you, maybe more. Let's start with Dylan. Okay, my favorite person to pick on. Dylan, if you were going to start a business, if you wanted to start a business tomorrow, and you needed a lot of money to start that business, let's say you had this great idea, you were really confident it would work, but you needed a lot of money and you didn't have a lot of money, what might you do?
First of all, pray about it, and then go to people with my idea that had money that would be able to back me up.
So you would be looking for a business partner,
Correct.
right? Because you needed something more than what you had to succeed at that. So you'd be looking for a partner there, right?
Right.
All right. Let's see. Mike. Let's say you are the president of the king. We'll make you king. You're king of a small country, and to the north is a really big country, and they look like they're going to come after you. What might you do in that situation? Decide.
Gather the troops, build,
Yeah.
build a wall, do something.
Okay. Okay. Any other ideas here?
I would get an ally.
You would get an ally. You would get an ally. Okay.
I don't need nobody.
So we have two different scenarios there, but in both cases, what could really help would be to have somebody on your side. Somebody that would be your partner, someone that would help you in that situation, right?
Yes.
Okay. If you needed a business partner, having somebody with deep pockets, that would really help, right? If, let's
Yes.
say, you had this great idea and you went to, I don't know who you want to go to today. Let's say you go to Warren Buffett, okay, and you convince Warren Buffett about this idea. He's got some pretty deep pockets. That would really take care of your financing. And let's say, you're in this little country and you come to, we're probably still a good power, come to the United States. That would be a good ally to have on your side, right?
Yes.
The better the partner, the better the ally, then the greater your success, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to the book of Joshua, chapter 1. In the book of Joshua, the children of Israel, when we come to the opening of the book of Joshua, are sitting right outside the promised land. There they are. On the other side of the river is the promised land. Moses, their leader, has died. And it's a tough time. And it's an important time. And it's been 40 years in getting there. What should have been a short trip, what should have just taken a matter of days, has taken them 40 years because they weren't confident enough to go in there the first time. And in Joshua chapter 1 and verse 1 it says, Now after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, it came to pass that the Lord spake unto Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' minister, saying, Moses my servant is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, thou and all this people, unto the land which I do give them, even to the children of Israel. Joshua had been Moses' right-hand man for better than 40 years. He was the faithful one. He was one of only two who, when they first looked at the promised land, came back and brought a good report to Moses and the children of Israel, saying, boy, it's a great one, and we can go in there. The other 10 spies, the other 10 that went in there, they came back and said, well, it's a great land. Yeah, it's everything we're promised. But there's people living there, and they're really big people. And if we go in, they're going to wipe us out. But Joshua and Caleb said, what are you talking about? We've got God on our side. We don't have to worry. Well, Moses led them faithfully for those 40 years, and now he's gone. And God comes to Joshua and says, Moses is dead, now it's up to you. This is up to you now, Joshua. You're the man. You're the one that has to go in there. You're the one that has to go in and claim that land that I promised all the way back to Abraham. And look what it says in verse 3. Every place that the sole of your foot shall tread upon, that have I given unto you, as I said unto Moses. From the wilderness and this Lebanon, even unto the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, and unto the great sea, toward the going down of the sun, shall be your coast. All of that I have given you. Past tense, I have already given you. Are they living on the land yet?
No.
Are they, building houses and picking fruit? No. But God says, I've already given you. They haven't walked into that land yet. From man's viewpoint, they don't have it. It's some guy that's kind of like, not an Israelite, will just say, one of those Canaanites wanders by and says, hey guys, what you doing? And they say, oh, we're about to go into our land. Say, your land? What do you mean your land? That's the Hittites are living there, and the Jebusites, and all those guys, they're all living there. What are you talking about? Can you imagine right now if, just pick a house in Auburn that you like. You probably have seen some house that you'd like. Imagine you're standing out there looking at that house, and somebody comes by and they say, what are you doing? And you say, well, I'm getting ready to move into my house. When did you buy it? Oh, I didn't buy it. It was given to me a long time. What do you mean it was given to you? There's a family living. Wouldn't that seem crazy to them? Well, no different here. This is the land. There are people living there. If you ask them who it belonged to, you know who they'd say? It belongs to me. I'm living here. I built this house. I plowed that field. I built this city. What are you talking about? It's your land. It's my land. I'm not leaving. It's my land. But God said he gave it to them. Have they claimed it yet? No. Is it theirs?
Yes.
Yeah. Believing is the title deed of things prayed for, the evidence that they're yours before you see them, right? Believing gives us the title deed. There are so many things that God promises to us in his word, and he says they're yours. You've been blessed with all spiritual blessings. Geez, I don't especially feel blessed today. It's yours. It's yours. You just have to go claim it. God's already given it. Verse 5. There shall not any man be able to stand before thee all the days of thy life. Why? As I was with Moses, so I shall be with thee. I will not fail thee nor forsake thee. If this little group of Israelites who's been wandering around, for 40 years in the desert, if they had to do it on their own, they'd be in trouble. They would be in trouble. They're going up against, at that time, some of the most powerful people on the face of the earth. And here they are, it hasn't even been a nation until Moses brought them out. And they're not much of a nation. They live in tents, they wander in the desert. It's taken them 40 years to get to a place that anybody else could have gotten there in a month and a half or so, a couple of months. They don't look like much, but they've got a partner, and it's God. They have an ally, and it's God. On their own, they don't amount to much, but with God, boy, they amount to everything they need. You and God make a majority in every situation. God is our partner. God is our ally. We've got somebody big on our side. A lot of little podunk countries, they don't worry much because we promise that if somebody picks on them, we'll get involved. And that keeps everybody else from picking on them because they know that the USA is back in that little country. The strength of that partnership, the strength of that ally is what makes them indomitable. Verse 6. Be strong and of a good courage, for unto this people shalt thou divide for an inheritance the land which I swear unto their fathers to give them. God swore unto their fathers, starting with Abraham. He promised Abraham, he promised Isaac, he promised Jacob, and his sons this land. This promise was given to them, and you know what? When God gives a promise, he backs it up. When God promises something, he'll deliver on that promise. Verse 7. Only be thou strong and very courageous, that thou mayest observe to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded thee. Turn not from it to the right hand or to the left, that thou mayest prosper whithersoever thou goest. The only thing that he tells them to do is to be strong and courageous. He tells them that 3 times in this context. 3 times he tells them, be strong and courageous. Why? Because they got to fight a big enemy? No, to be strong and courageous to do the word. God will make sure the enemy's taken care of. Their job is to keep the focus on the word. Be strong in his strength. Remember that God's with them. Do his word, and they have no problem. When they do that, it says that they'll prosper whithersoever thou goest. Verse 8. The book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. Don't let the word of God depart out of your mouth. Meditate in it day and night. Speak the word. Think the word. Speak the word to yourself each and every day. Think the word all throughout the day. I was thinking about the place in Colossians where it says, speaking unto yourselves in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your hearts to the Lord. We're to speak the word to ourselves. We're to sing the word to ourselves. We're to think the word. And when we do that, that's how the word of God dwells in us richly, as it says in Colossians. When that word of God dwells in us richly, then we're not trying to fight with our own strength. Our own strength is limited. And many times what we're coming up against is a lot worse than, some little podunk country going up against some major world power. We have an enemy. We have an adversary. They're about to go in and fight some enemies. Like I said, some of those people were some of the strongest on the face of the earth at the time. Is our enemy strong? Yeah, he is. Our enemy is the adversary. And, he's the God of this world. And if we had to try to go up against him by ourselves, we'd be in big trouble. But we're not by ourselves. God is on our side. Verse 9, have not I commanded thee? Be strong and of good courage. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed. For the Lord thy God is with thee whithersoever thou goest. Again, God tells them he will be with them. That's why they could do what they're about to do. That's why they could go in and claim this promised land. You can turn to Deuteronomy chapter 8. They can claim this promised land because God is with them. It's a remarkable thing that God would do this. Think about these people that he's doing it for. These people, these children of Israel, that God is going to fight for. He tells them that every place they go, it's theirs. Every place they walk, it's already been claimed. He'll drive out the inhabitants of the land before. He will fight their fight for them. Who are these people? Were they the most wonderful, loving, obedient people that anyone could ever imagine that God could have?
Nope.
No, they weren't, were they? They weren't. These are the people who, let's Well, we'll read a little bit of Deuteronomy and then we'll talk about them more. Deuteronomy chapter 8. All the commandments which I command thee this day shall ye observe to do, that ye may live and multiply and go in and possess the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers. Okay? Here he's telling them, before they get to that place, when this is Moses telling them, while they're still quite a ways off. And thou shalt remember all the way which the Lord thy God led thee these 40 years in the wilderness, to humble thee and to prove thee, to know what was in thine heart, whether thou wouldest keep his commandments or no. And he humbled thee and suffered thee to hunger, and fed thee with manna, which thou knowest not, neither did thy fathers know, that he might make thee know that man may not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth doth man live. Out of the mouth of the Lord doth man live. He fed them with manna. He fed them with manna. Do you remember what happened, what led up to that one? They came out there in the wilderness, and they said, Moses, why did you bring us here? Weren't there enough graves back in Egypt that you brought us out here in the desert that we'd starve to death? And yet God was so merciful and gracious that he fed them with manna. Thy raiment waxed not old upon thee, your clothes didn't wear out. 40 years. You know, I've got some shirts that my claims I think. But for the most part, clothes don't last, and you know they didn't have. You know that wasn't just the one they wore every once a month or something. They didn't have like a closet full of clothes. They had whatever they could carry, I guess. And yet those clothes didn't wear out for 40 years. Neither did thy feet swell these 40 days. Gosh, in another couple of weeks I'll go to the state fair, and I'll walk around there for 6-7 hours, and my feet will be swollen for a couple of days. Mm-hmm. There they are, wandering around, walking around for 40 years, and their feet didn't swell. Verse 5. Thou shalt also consider in thine heart that as a man chasteneth the son, so the Lord chasteneth thee. Therefore thou shalt keep the commandments of the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways and to fear him. For the Lord thy God bringeth thee into a good land, a land of brooks of water. This is the land that he's bringing them to, of fountains and depths that spring out of valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley and vines and fig trees and pomegranates. Where are they while they're hearing this?
In the
Desert.
In the desert. That, can you kind of picture that one? You've been in the desert for 40 years and you're hearing about this land. It's like, if you fasted for, a week and somebody starts talking about, hamburgers and fries and, for somebody else, fruit and, man, you're just like, let me have it, right? Well, that's what this land of wheat, barley, vines, fig trees. They've been eating nothing but this manna for 40 years. They are tired of manna, believe me. And pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey, a land wherein thou shalt eat bread without scarceness. Thou shalt not lack anything in it. Shall not lack anything in it. Everything you need you'll have. A land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hills thou mayest dig brass. All the natural resources that they could ever want, they had any idea of how to use at that time, this land had for them. God describes this land, and this is the land that he's promised. This land of milk and honey, this land that is so abundant. Joshua 24. Verse 1. And Joshua gathered all the tribes of Israel to Shechem and called for the elders of Israel and for their heads, and for the judges and for their officers, and they presented themselves before God. Now they've gone into the land. And Joshua, now that they've claimed the land, calls together all the people and all the leaders. And Joshua, verse 2, said unto all the people, Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, Your fathers dwelled on the other side of the flood in old time, even Terah, the father of Abraham, and the father of Nahor. And what did they do?
Served other
Served
gods.
other gods. He's reminding them of the history of this people. It started off that these people, they can go all the way back to the other side of the flood. And there, Tahar, who was the father of Abraham, and also the father of, what was it, Nahor? And there's another son there, Haran, I believe. Not mentioned in that verse. And while they were there, what were they doing? They were serving other gods. And yet, verse 3, I took your father Abraham from the other side of the flood, and led him throughout all the land of Canaan, and multiplied his seed, and gave him Isaac. And I gave unto Isaac Jacob and Esau. And I gave unto Esau Mount Seir, to possess it. But Jacob and his children went down into Egypt. I sent Moses and Aaron, and I plagued Egypt according to that which I did among them. And afterward I brought you out. And I brought your fathers out of Egypt, and ye came into the sea. And the Egyptians pursued after your fathers with chariots and horsemen unto the Red Sea. And they cried unto the Lord, and he put darkness between you and the Egyptians, and brought the sea upon them, and covered them. And your eyes have seen what I have done in Egypt, and ye dwelt in the wilderness a long season. And I brought you into the land of the Amorites, which dwelt on the other side Jordan. And they fought with you, and I gave them into your hands, that ye might possess their land, and I destroyed them before you. Then Balak the son of Zippor, king of Moab, arose, and warred against Israel, and sent and called Balaam the son of Beor to curse you. But I would not hearken unto Balaam. Therefore he blessed you still, so I delivered you out of his hand. And you went over Jordan, and came unto Jericho. And the men of Jericho fought against you, the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Girgashites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And what happened? I delivered them into your hand. And I sent the hornet before you, which drave them out before you, even the 2 kings of the Amorites, but not with the sword, nor with thy bow. God even sent hornets to fight some of the fights, so they didn't even have to fight with the sword or bow. He chased some of those people away with a bunch of hornets. Verse 13. And I have given you a land for which ye did not labor, and cities which ye built not, and ye dwell in them. Of the vineyards and olive yards which ye planted, do not ye eat. God prepared this land for them. They didn't have to build the cities. They didn't have to plow up that land. They didn't have to cut down the trees and clear the land and dig up those big rocks and carry the rocks to the edge and make fences. They didn't have to plant the vineyards and plant the orchards and all of these things. It was all there. It was all there. Man so often puts everything on himself. We think we have to do it all. We think that we have to work so hard. Did Israel work so hard for what they got?
Mm-hmm.
But of course, they were a lot better than we are, weren't they?
No.
No, they weren't. They weren't. Israel. Even by this time, these guys, I don't know what they're doing back in Egypt, but it doesn't say exactly. It says they cried unto the Lord, right, for help. But we know that once they get out there, the minute Moses is out of sight for a couple of days, they make a golden calf. They had to have been familiar with those gods back in Egypt, right? And there they are worshiping that golden calf. These people that are afraid to walk into the land that God promised. These people that complain on every case. Every time they're up against a hard situation, they doubt, they worry, they fear. Were they such great believers? Were they so much better than we?
No.
Sometimes, believers look and they say, oh gosh, I'm up against this big situation, and I know, back in this other time, I worried and I got fearful, and it it didn't happen. You know, look at the history of Israel. Look what God does for these people. And he talks about their whole long history, and he goes back to Abraham. Abraham was the father of believing, right? But read about Abraham's life. Read about him. That's a fella who, until he finally, at the age of, over 100 or something, finally gets around to figuring out that he doesn't have to do it all himself. He's got a long, long pattern of trying to do things on his own, of figuring out what to do. Twice, Sarah. Now I gotta say, this is somebody that someday I want to meet, because Sarah had to be one incredibly beautiful woman, because on 2 occasions kings wanted to take her for their wife, and she was already no spring chicken. And Abraham in those situations was concerned, so he'd always tell her, well, don't tell them you're my wife, tell them you're my sister. Now, it never says God told him to do that. That was always Abraham's own plan, and God always had to somehow pull him out of the soup in those situations. Abraham has this history of trying to figure out stuff on his own. When God promises him a son, when it doesn't happen right away, he tries to figure it out on his own and has Ishmael and thinks that ought to be it. And God has to straighten him out. And yet this is the father of believing. Somebody that took an awful long time to get around to the place of really believing. And yet God did this for Abraham. And he did it for Isaac. And you could go through the life of Isaac. And if you haven't read all these people's lives, read Genesis and look at how frail these people are. How, yes, they're the best God's got, because they're at least listening to him. They're at least having a conversation. But, there's not a lot more than you can say about Isaac and Jacob lots of times, for the most part. For the most part. These guys blow hot and cold. These guys are as frail and human as you and I. And yet God does it for the fathers, for them, for these people. And God makes this promise. Not when they deserved it, and not that they deserved it at the time they claimed it, but God, because God is gracious, promised. And so he did this for them. He gave them this land. They didn't work for it. They just walked in and claimed it. We have to turn to God and rely on him. God is our fellow laborer. He is our partner. It says that in 1 John that we would have fellowship with Jesus Christ and the Father. And that word fellowship in some translations is partnership. That's certainly a part of what that word koinonia means. He is our partner, and he will work with us. We just have to remember that he's the partner with the real strength.